The following is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com. Live video streaming of this event is made possible in part by WLCN's live stream technology sponsor, Me Realty, located at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln and online at merealty.com. PM 411 here on WLCN 96.3 FM. I am Loyd Kirby, the marketing manager here at WLCN, and today our guest is Lincoln Rural Fire Protection District Chief Chris Buse. So, Chris, thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. If you have questions of Chief Buse, 217-648-5510, the number to call, or you can send us your questions by email, 4pm411 at WLCNonline.com. Also want to mention, be sure to tune in tomorrow. It must be First Responder Week here at WLCN, as we have Christy Fruget from the Lincoln Police Department DARE program, as well as Josh Ferris from the Logan County Sheriff's Office. They will be the guests on Viewpoint starting at 8 a.m. That program used to air at 8:15, now airs 8 a.m. to 8:30 with Dara Entwistle. And be sure to tune in for information and welcoming your calls there as well. But today, as I said, we have Chief Buse in the house. So Lincoln Rural Fire Protection District, you guys cover an awful lot of ground out there.
We do. We cover roughly about 144 square miles. So It would be the 4 townships of East Lincoln, West Lincoln, Chester, and Broadwell that are outside of the city limits of Lincoln.
Okay. And even though it's Lincoln Rural Fire Protection District, you respond to fires, obviously, but I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other types of calls you respond to as well.
There is. We we cover fire of all different types, whether it's structural, vehicle, field, with agriculture. That's a big one coming up here soon. We go on vehicle accidents, emergency medical runs. We're a basic life support medical response agency. So whenever there's a medical call in our fire district, we're dispatched along with the Logan County paramedics, and we go and handle the situations there. We respond on hazmat calls, water rescue calls, search and rescue calls. Nationwide, fire departments are pretty well tasked with, somebody needs to do it, so let's put it on the fire department. And that's
any cats in a tree or anything like that?
Yes, honestly, yes.
Okay.
It's not something that we frequent, but every once in a great while it does happen.
Okay. So how many years have you been with the Rural Fire Protection District?
Total, about 27 years. I started when I was 14 as an Explorer program, which is our youth program that we have. Basically covers from the age of 14 to 21. Okay. Most people, if they're pursuing a career in fire or EMS, once they reach the age of 18, they'll try to get on volunteer, whether it's with us or another surrounding communities department. But that's where I got my start. And then when I turned 18, I was able to get on as a volunteer member. And in 2005, I believe it was, I was hired full-time by the district. So I have 17, 18 years full-time, and about the last 6.5 years as the fire chief.
Okay. And did you particularly aspire to be fire chief when you began, or how did that take place?
Yes and no. When it was offered to me, I definitely didn't expect it at that particular juncture, but the chief that we had at the time wanted to step away, pursue other avenues and things, so he retired from the department, and I was the next in line, being the assistant chief. So they offered it to me. This all, like I said, kind of happened unexpectedly, but I think you always aspire to try to move up and do the best you can, and in our agency, the fire chief's the highest level you can go. So I would say yes, at some point I would have liked to have hoped to reach that goal, but if it didn't happen, it didn't happen. But we always try to do the best we can.
And so, being fire chief, I mean, obviously you've got the administrative things such as budgets and scheduling, I'm guessing, and things like that. But
yes.
You're also tasked, I would guess, with if there's a fire in, for example, rural Atlanta. And I don't know all the logistics of it. If the Atlanta Fire Department, would they respond to that, and then you come assist, or vice
Correct.
versa? Or how do those types of situations work themselves out?
So as far as the chief position go, it's kind of a unique way that we have it, I guess, to some degree. The city of Lincoln, for example, their chief is a daytime chief. He works, Monday through Friday. Obviously, if there's a need for a large call or something, he responds in. With myself, I still work the 24-hour on, 48-hour off rotation, being an on-duty firefighter, as well as the extra time of doing the chief's duties, coming in on my off days, working in the office, doing admin stuff. Now, as far as the response goes, we all belong to locally and statewide to a group known as MABUS, which stands for the Mutual Aid Box Alarm System. This is a system that was developed up in the suburbs of Chicago back in, I believe it's the 60s or 70s, and has pretty much spread throughout the whole state and even into neighboring states. Illinois, their fire service is actually a model for a lot of other areas in the country because they have it set up the right way. But basically,
you don't often hear that about Illinois, so kudos to you.
And even like the Illinois Fire Service Institute over in Champaign is one of the premier fire academies in the country. So I mean, it goes deep. It's not just with MABUS, but so what MABUS does is, on a local level, you have predetermined mutual aid box cards that we call them. So, for example, if you used Atlanta, so if Atlanta were to get a house fire, they have predetermined departments that the dispatch center has, so they know exactly who to call, what they want them to bring, whether it's a tanker or an engine, a ladder truck, whatever the case may be. And it kind of takes some of the guesswork out of it, so you already know right off the bat who you got coming and what resources are coming. And then as the incident were to be larger, then you go to the next alarm. So you hear in the news 4-alarm fire, 5-alarm fire. The more alarms, the bigger the fire is. And we have those for structural fires, for field fires, vehicle accidents. The MABUS system then goes to an interagency or interdivisional. So if we needed more resources, say from Sangamon County, McLean County, whatever, then those resources are also coordinated in by the MABUS Red Center, which is up in Wheeling, Illinois, and they would take care of bringing in more resources once we exhaust the local level.
Right.
For example, several years back, we had a very large fire down in Latham, Illinois, and they had 42 fire departments, I believe, is what responded to it. It was one of their downtown large buildings, and we had 3 ladder trucks, one from us, one from the city of Lincoln, and one from Forsyth Hickory Point Fire Department. And you got those big ladders up with large water flowing. It takes a lot to supply. Well, the village of Latham couldn't supply that, so we had to call in tankers. And there were tankers. Every department in Logan County was there. I think every department in Macon County, with the exception of Decatur, was there. Some from DeWitt County, Christian County, half of Sangamon County. So it's kind of organized chaos, but it gets the job done. And things are a lot different when you talk about fires in the rural community, because there are no fire hydrants to speak of. And so you're depending on your neighbors to bring tanker trucks in with thousands of gallons of water, and you have a fire engine that can pump 1,250 to 2,000 gallons of water a minute. It doesn't take long to go through water, so.
Right. And these dry conditions lately probably have not.
It has not been real beneficial. Thankfully, we haven't had any major catastrophes due to it, but it definitely puts extra thoughts in your mind of needing to worry about things.
Sure. So our guest is Chris Buse, rather. He's the Lincoln Rural Fire Protection District Chief. If you have questions of Chief Buse, 217-648-5510, the number to call, or you can email us, 4pm411 at WLCNonline.com. We'll go ahead and take our first break now, and we'll be back in 2 minutes with more with Chief Chris Buse. Live video streaming of this event is made possible in part by WLCN's live stream technology sponsor, Me Realty, located at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln, and online at merealty.com. And we are back on the 4PM 411. Once again, our guest is Lincoln Rural Fire Protection District Chief Chris Buse. If you have questions or comments, 217-648-5510, the number to call. We talked a little bit about just some general things about the department, where types of calls, service areas, cooperating with other departments, and so forth. Let's dig a little bit more into the administrative side of things, if we could. What is your staffing situation right now there at the department?
Like most places, you can always use more help. Nationwide, there is a shortage of volunteers. I believe it's 70% of the fire departments in the country are volunteers, and unfortunately, it's getting harder and harder to find good people. Whether it be from the fact of people have more stuff going on, families, personal lives, things like that, to the standards of training and just the time commitment. We run roughly around 900 calls a year, so there is a pretty good commitment there. Now, we're fortunate that we are a combination department. We have 6 full-time guys, and then at full capacity we have 24 volunteer spots.
Nice.
We are down quite a few volunteers, but again, things come up, lives happen, and
Sure.
guys go their own ways. Some of them move on. We've had some guys that have decided they want to do it as a career and moved on to other fire departments. We have one guy that started with us that works at Champaign. We have some guys that started that work for the city. They move on to different and better
Sure.
adventures and things. So, but there is a shortage overall of volunteers. It's not just Lincoln rural, it's not just Logan County, everybody. And more times than not, neighbors are having to rely more on their other departments nearby.
Mm-hmm.
We run a lot of mutual aid or auto aid with surrounding departments and things, because they may not have adequate staffing during the daytime due to jobs and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing that comes into play is 20, 30 years ago, a lot of your people worked in your small towns and things like that. Well, businesses have dried up, and you have some guys that are farmers that are still out there, and that's great. But in the middle of harvest or planting, their availability may not be what it once was either.
Sure.
So it's just a constant struggle. We do have a system that every department in the county uses called a fire text system, where not only do we get the calls on our pagers, but we get a cell phone app that tells you that there's a call coming through too. And so you actually text in so your people know how many guys you have coming in. So it is a lot nicer than 10, 15 years ago when you were just hoping that you had people show up. Now you can actually see it, and even our dispatch center has a link to that, so they can see if XYZ fire department is responding or not, and if they need to be calling somebody else nearby or whatever.
Oh, nice. What you mentioned there with the small towns and jobs drying up, that would be another consideration, I would think. People, like I grew up in Waynesville and smaller towns like Atlanta or McLean, where you had people working locally at whatever the business might be, a gas station or grocery store. Now, if those people are driving to Bloomington or Peoria or wherever, then they might get a call, but they're 50 minutes away. So
Exactly.
So we've had on this show, as well as on the Viewpoint show, we've had Chief Joe Meister, as well as we had Chief Velakovich before him, as well as Sheriff Landers, talking about the staffing issues with their departments and the application process. And I might be misremembering, but I think they told us that from the time an application is received to the time that someone is ready to hit the street, I thought they said right around an 8 or a 9 month process between the application and the vetting and the testing and the academy training. How long does it take from the time you get an application for a fire protection district position to that person being able to actually assist?
Well, it kind of varies. So we have 2 different processes. We have the process for volunteer, and then we have the process for full-time. Full-time, there is more to it. Now, one thing that when we do our testing process to bring people on, because you actually, you do have to actually test to get on a hiring list and things along those lines, which the hiring list is usually good for 2 years.
Okay.
But the process we use, we actually require them to have certain credentials to apply, whereas, say, Lincoln City, Joe Smith off the street can come and apply, and then they have the resources to send them to Champaign to the fire academy and things like that. With us being a smaller agency, we don't have a lot of surplus revenue to be able to shell out the kind of money that it costs to send somebody for 8 weeks over to the fire academy and then turn around and send them through an EMT class and things like that. So that's one of the reasons. Unfortunately, it does limit the applicants that we have, but we know once they get on and we can get them familiarized with our agency and things like that, then we have a quicker turnaround getting them going and things. The volunteer side, it's pretty basic. Anybody 18 or older can come and get on, fill out paperwork. We'll go through when we usually have a couple times a year that we do the volunteers, so that way a group of people can be put on at the same time, and we're not training this guy at one level and then the next person at another level and so on and so forth. So we typically, you turn in that paper application. When it comes time, we'll bring the applicants in for an interview. If we feel that they're a good quality candidate and things, then we'll bring them on. We'll start getting them familiarized, start some real world training, but we also work on getting them into classes and things to get them the certification, the trainings that they need and stuff. So the volunteer side of it is a little less strenuous than the full-time side of it, but it still takes some time, several months for sure, just to get somebody the basic acclimation.
Okay, and then is the route from volunteer to applying full-time then, is it less strenuous, I guess I should say, or do you kind of have your foot in the door there, or?
You can get preference points. A lot of fire departments, not just us, but a lot of fire departments in the process, you're allowed by statute to give preference points for certain criteria. And being a member, with years of service experience, not necessarily on our department, but, years of experience does come into play with things. So it does make the transition time, if this person were to get hired, they're already familiar with our department. They're already familiar with how we operate with our neighbors and things like that. So it does make the transition easier, but as far as the actual process, you still got to go through all the steps and procedures.
All right, so we're at 20 after 4, so we'll go ahead and take our second break. Once again, we're talking with Chris can't even say your name today. Chris Buse, who is the Lincoln Rural Fire Protection District Chief. 217-648-5510, the number to call if you have questions or comments. We'll be back in 2 minutes and have our last segment with Chief Buse. And we are back on the 4 p.m. 411 with Lincoln Rural Fire Protection District Chief Chris Buse. I said it right that time. 217-648-5510, the number to call if you have questions or comments. We've got just a few minutes left. We were talking before the show, Chief Buse, about the PTEL referendum that happened a few years ago, which had to do with the tax and supporting the department. It passed successfully. How are we far enough? Is it far enough in your rearview mirror that you can tell? Is it making a difference? Is it making the department more financially solid?
Yeah. So we actually had two questions. One was to increase our PTEL, which common term our tax cap, and then the other one was also to add a rescue tax. In the go around, the first time the rescue tax passed, the PTEL didn't. We went back. The PTEL passed the second time. So overall, yes, it definitely given us the shot in the arm that we needed to get by. We ended this past budget year was our first year having the full amounts from the referendum benefit, and for the first time in quite a few years, we ended the budget positively. So up until then, we were taking out tax anticipation warrants and basically taking a loan off of the next year's budget money to finish the cycle. So it was great to see, and we're definitely sitting in a better position than what we were before. Unfortunately, the cost of doing business is pretty steep. I mentioned before, right now we actually are down a truck right now. Had a frame break on it, and the starting point to even begin repairs is around $60,000. Wow. The truck's 23 years old. It's only worth about $60,000, so it doesn't really make a whole lot of financial sense to put that kind of money into it. On the flip side, though, a brand new fire truck is nowadays is starting around $400,000 to $500,000. Wow. So it's not something that we're able to jump on right at the moment. Now, there are used options out there. We've bought plenty of used fire trucks over the years. We've had good luck with some, bad luck with others. So the board hasn't made any decisions yet. We'll probably end up selling the truck and get whatever we can get out of it, and then look at a replacement at some point down the road. But it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's nothing's cheap anymore, that's for sure. So let's go from the negative maybe to something a little more positive. You were telling me that you got your start in the Explorers program. Can you kind of tell us what that's about and how it relates to the department? Sure.
So the Explorer program is actually an affiliate through the Boy Scouts of America. We don't do a lot as it pertains to scouting. I mean, they're just kind of the umbrella company, so to speak. But the Explore program is for boys and girls 14, like I said, officially till 21, but usually till around 18 or so. Teaches them the basics and basic hands-on of fire and EMS. When the group is going well, we're going through some transitions right now, new leadership taking it over and things. So the guy that was in charge of the Explorers for the last 20 some years just felt it was time to get some new blood in there, so he passed it on. And so the gal that's taking it over, she's kind of getting her feet wet, so things are kind of in a pause with the group right now. But it teaches all the basics. They do all the same type of training that we do as firefighters, just maybe a little less intense. There's certain things they can do, like use power tools and things along those lines. We don't want anybody coming back missing appendages. But it really gets a foot in the door, and we've had a lot of success over the years with the program. It started with the department, I believe, in 1996. I joined it in 97, and it hooked me in from the word go. We've had a lot of members of our department, both full-time and volunteer, that have come from the Explorer program, and as I mentioned earlier, some that have gone on to other agencies and endeavors as well. So overall, I feel it's been a very, very good program. And it's not just isolated to people from our fire district. We've had people from inside the city, of course. We've had people from Atlanta, Mount Pulaski, all over that have been part of it at one time or another. So it is a very good program, in my opinion.
And speaking of programs and sort of community outreach types of things, obviously you've got the fires and the emergencies you respond to, but your department also does quite a bit of community outreach and things with the public. I remember I saw your truck at the 4th of July celebration at the Park District, and we've seen you around different events. So is that a purposeful intentional sort of an outreach for you to try and let kids know that you're around and can help?
Well, we love going out and taking part in stuff with the community, whether it's, doing helping the sheriff's office and stuff with a cop on a rooftop thing. Obviously we enjoy being able to give the police officers a hard time about, getting them to the roof. But, we enjoy doing it. The fireworks, we enjoy being out there. We'd much rather see the public for good reasons than bad reasons. Obviously, when we're going to somebody's house, property, whatever, it's a bad day for them. They don't typically call us for good reasons. So, so we enjoy being out there. We have a trailer that we've been working on for a few years, a Stay Alive or a safety trailer. It's still got some work to be done to it. Some things kind of got held up on it. Obviously, COVID, everything, getting supplies and whatnot for it. So, and even with, during COVID, we had to, of course, cut back on a lot of our community involvement. We love having groups and things come out to the firehouse, giving tours. We haven't done a lot of that in the last couple of years, obviously. But whenever we're asked to take part in something, we usually try to do as much as we can to make it happen. We helped with the Special Olympics torch run this year. We're part of the procession bringing the torch through town. So just different things that we enjoy, and as long as we're available to, we're going to try to make the effort to be a part of it.
Our guest is Chris Buse, the Lincoln Rural Fire Protection District Chief. What's the most rewarding part of your position as chief?
Oh, that is a good question.
I had to throw you a curveball before we're done here.
It probably sounds cliche, but honestly, just seeing the department succeed. It's a constant uphill battle. As I mentioned, whether it's equipment or state mandates and this and that and whatever. It's a rough job to do, not only as the chief, but for all the guys. Because we are a smaller agency, so we're all in the thick of it together, and just being able to see the agency succeed on different levels, whether it's being able to get, successfully get a new piece of equipment that's valuable for what we're doing, or, saving a life, or successfully saving somebody's house or whatever. Those are the things that really, we see a lot more bad than we do good. So it's very rewarding to see when, as I mentioned earlier, the organized chaos comes together and has a positive outcome.
If folks are interested in the Explorers program, or just, I don't know, maybe they have a group they'd like to set up a tour at the fire station, how would they go about doing that? Just
contact the firehouse, 217-732-6697. And as I stated, we do have full-time people, so we're there 24 hours a day unless we're out on a run. So, you can call there. I'm usually in there most days during the week, and I can put you in touch with Savannah Conrady, who is our head of the Explorer program now. And, as far as other questions and stuff, I'll do my best to answer it and take care of people's needs on stuff.
Yeah. Even if it's a annoying radio host trying to get you on the air for this show.
Never. It's been a long endeavor, but we finally hit a date.
We did. So I appreciate that. So our guest has been Chris Buse with the Lincoln Rural Fire Protection District. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow to Viewpoint at its new time, 8 a.m., when Christy Fruget from the Lincoln Police Department and the DARE program, as well as Josh Ferris from the Logan County Sheriff's Office, will be the guests with host Dara Entwistle. But for right now, I'm Loyd Kirby from WLCN. Thanks for listening. Live video streaming of this event is made possible in part by WLCN's live stream technology sponsor, Me Realty, located at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln, and online at merealty.com. The preceding program is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com.